When I first met her, I was fresh out of combat. If you've never been in that world, it's hard to explain what it does to you. Chaos becomes normal. Every day feels like it could be your last, and when you finally get out, you don't know how to live a regular life anymore. That was me, a man with scars I didn't know how to heal and habits I couldn't shake. We bumped into each other at a small cafe. She smiled and asked if the seat next to me was taken, and that was it. In a world that felt unpredictable, she was calm, steady, and warm. For a guy like me, that was gold. She didn't know about my past, of course. I wasn't ready to talk about it. Honestly, I didn't think it mattered. I told her I worked for the government. Simple, vague, easy to believe. It wasn't a lie exactly. It just wasn't the whole truth. I left the messy details, the combat missions, and the classified operations out. She didn't need to know how many nights I spent on edge, or the things I saw that still haunt me. We got married about a year later. I thought I had left the chaos behind, that we'd build a normal life together. But about 6 months into our marriage, the FBI came knocking. They'd heard about my combat record and wanted me on their team. It wasn't an opportunity one could ignore. Here's the thing about being in the FBI. It's not like the movies. It's not all car chases and shootouts. A lot of it is slow, careful work, but it's dangerous too. The people you're dealing with aren't just criminals. They're the kind of people who wouldn't blink before coming after your family if they knew who you were. That's why I kept it from her. It's safer if she didn't know because she wouldn't worry. But I won't lie, keeping secrets weighs on you. There were nights when I'd come home late, exhausted from a mission, and she'd ask where I'd been. I'd give her some vague excuse about meetings or late-night reports. She'd believe me, or maybe she just didn't push. I didn't know if she was giving me space, or if she'd learned not to expect too much. Looking back, I can see how it started to build a wall between us. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was shielding her from the dark corners of my world. When you work for the FBI, you learn to trust your instincts, but you also learn how to push emotions aside when you're on the job. At least, that's what I thought, until I saw something I couldn't unsee. It started as a regular day. I was sitting in a dark surveillance van, scrolling through hours of footage from a local hotel. The case wasn't particularly exciting, just routine surveillance of a suspected money launderer. The hotel was one of his known meeting spots, so my job was to watch for any suspicious activity. As I clicked through the timestamps, my eyes froze on the screen. There she was, my wife. But she wasn't alone. She was walking through the lobby with a man I didn't recognize, leaning in closer than I ever remember. The way she smiled at him as they talked. My training told me to analyze situations objectively, but at that moment, all I could feel was this crushing weight on my chest. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut and knocked the air out of me. I sat there for a while, staring at the screen. Questions flooded my mind faster than I could process them. A part of me wanted to find excuses for her, to blame myself for not being there enough. After all, I've lied to her for years about my job. She thinks I work a boring government desk job, not that I'm out in the field risking my life. But as much as I wanted to shoulder the blame, there was a much louder part of me that couldn't let go of the betrayal. It wasn't just the act of meeting another man. It was that they were at a hotel already. The affair is already established. The line had already been crossed. She was my wife. She had made vows, just like I did, and had no business being in a hotel with another man. I turned off the screen and sat back in the van, staring at nothing in particular. It was at that moment I realized something had shifted. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was an investigator with a deeply personal case to solve. I'll be honest, when I first realized this secret affair, my instinct wasn't to yell or confront her. Maybe it's the training. I'm taught to observe, to wait, to collect facts. So that's what I did. The night I saw the footage of her with him, my world fell apart. I already knew what my wife was doing. I only needed more evidence to answer some questions. The next few days, I used every ounce of my training to figure out the truth. I started small, checking our shared calendar for any work dinners or Bible study meetings that didn't line up. Then I set up a discreet tracker on her car. I wanted to know where she was going when she said she was somewhere else. I juggled this with my regular FBI work, which was ironic. One minute, I was tailing a suspect on an arms deal, and the next, I was cross-referencing timestamps from her supposed whereabouts. It felt surreal, like living two lives at once, though I guess I was used to that. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. She met him again a few days later, this time at a bar. I snapped photos from a distance. The hardest part wasn't the surveillance, it was the content. Watching her laugh at his jokes, seeing the casual way they touched. I even saw him kiss her intimately. Then there were the texts. I had access to our family cloud account, which she probably didn't think twice about. That's where I found the messages, which confirmed what I'd already pieced together. She called him things she hadn't called me in years and shared photos of themselves. As I built my case, because that's what it felt like, a case, I couldn't stop the flood of emotions. Resentment grew with every photo, every text, and every moment I tracked her movements and saw the life she was building with someone else. And the worst part? She had no idea I knew. I could have confronted her right then and there, but I didn't. Because if there's one thing I've learned in my line of work, it's this. The truth always comes out, and it's better when it's undeniable. After I had everything I needed, photos, timestamps, messages, I decided to take action. Not by confronting her. Oh no, I wanted her to see the world she built crumble piece by piece. The first thing I did was reach out to her lover's wife. Well, not directly. I didn't want to show my hand. I created a new email account, completely untraceable, thanks to the skills I picked up in the field. I wrote her a simple message, "You deserve to know the truth about your husband," and attached a couple of photos. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make it clear. I hit send, and imagined what her reaction might be when she saw them. Maybe shock, maybe anger. Either way, it wasn't my concern. I was simply putting the pieces in place. Next, I turned to my wife's Bible study group. It was ironic, really. Every Tuesday evening, she'd sit with those women, discussing virtues like honesty and faithfulness. Meanwhile, she was busy lying to everyone, including herself. I printed out a few of the more damning photos, ones that left no room for doubt, and mailed them anonymously to 3 of the group's core members. I knew these women wouldn't keep quiet. They'd whisper and gossip, letting the news spread like wildfire. Then I went for her family. This one felt personal. Her parents always thought of her as this perfect angel, the daughter who could do no wrong. So, I mailed them the same photos anonymously. No letter, no explanation, just the truth in black and white. I didn't need to add any commentary. The images spoke for themselves. And you know what the funny thing is? None of them came to me to expose her. Not the Bible study group. Not her family. Everyone kept it quiet, pretending they hadn't seen anything. But I could tell the news was spreading. I saw it in her face, the way her cheerful demeanor started cracking. She was quieter at dinner, distracted. She spent more time on her phone, but not in the usual way. It was like she was trying to manage the fallout, trying to figure out who had blown the whistle. I just sat back and watched. I didn't say a word. I didn't confront her. I didn't even change my routine. But I could see it. The weight of her choices was starting to crush her. And honestly, it was satisfying to watch. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I wanted her to understand. This was her mess, and now she had to deal with it. By the end of the week, it was clear she was losing control. She was jumpy and anxious, and I knew she was terrified someone would tell me. Little did she know I set up everything. And I wasn't just waiting for her to break, I was preparing for the next move. But that's a story for later. I just didn't expect her to come to me on a random Thursday evening, standing in the doorway of my home office, twisting her hands nervously like a child caught stealing. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice unusually soft, almost trembling. I looked up from my laptop, keeping my face calm. Sure, I said, leaning back in my chair. Inside, I was bracing myself. She sat on the couch across from me, her leg bouncing slightly. I don't even know how to start, she stammered, avoiding my eyes. She ran a hand through her hair, sighing dramatically, like she was the victim of something. Things haven't been easy lately. I said nothing. I didn't want to make it easy for her. She started rambling, jumping from one thought to another, trying to paint herself as misunderstood. She talked about how I'd been distant, how my work took me away too much, and how she felt alone even when I was home. I could see where she was going, and it almost made me laugh. She was throwing blame around, trying to justify herself without outright saying it. I mean, you're always busy, she continued, her voice rising. And I guess I made a mistake, okay? But it's not just my fault. That was it. She'd said enough. I stood up slowly, walking past her to the wardrobe in the corner of the room. She froze mid-sentence, watching me curiously. I opened the suitcase I'd placed there a week earlier, took out a slim folder, and walked back to where she sat. I placed it on the coffee table in front of her, the divorce papers neatly tucked inside. "What's this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Divorce papers," I said calmly. "You can sign them whenever you're ready." Her face crumpled. For the first time since she walked in, she was silent. She stared at the papers like they were a foreign object, something she couldn't understand. You knew?" I nodded, folding my arms. "I've known for a while, but I was waiting to see if you'd have the decency to tell me yourself." She opened her mouth as if to respond, but no words came out. Her face was pale, her hands trembling slightly as she touched the folder. "You're serious?" she finally whispered, her voice shaky. "Very," I said. "This," I gestured between us, "is done. There's nothing left to say." I could tell she wanted to ask questions, to defend herself, maybe even to cry, but I wasn't interested in hearing any of it. I'd already heard enough from her. I walked out of the room without another word, leaving her sitting there, stunned and silent. As I closed the door behind me, there was no going back, no fixing this. And, for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. Sometimes, the best response isn't anger, shouting, or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes, the best response is just walking away, letting the silence speak for itself. When it came to the divorce proceedings, I approached it like I would any mission, methodically, with a plan, and with the facts on my side. The evidence I had gathered, photos, timestamps, receipts, even their messages, wasn't just for my peace of mind. I knew it would be useful if things ever got ugly, and they did. In court, her shock was obvious. I could see it on her face when I submitted the evidence. She had no idea I'd been documenting everything. Every dinner they had, every hotel booking, every time she lied about working late or going to Bible study. I had it all, and I presented it without any emotion. The lawyer I hired was sharp, but I made his job easy. He didn't have to argue much, because the facts speak for themselves. The judge saw it too. The evidence made it clear who had been dishonest, and it gave me the leverage I needed to retain a larger share of what we'd built together, or what I thought we'd built together. She didn't just lose some of the assets. She lost her composure. I'll never forget her reaction during the hearing when she realized how much I had prepared. She kept glancing at me, her face shifting between disbelief and anger like she was trying to piece together how I managed to know so much. She underestimated me, plain and simple. She thought I was clueless. In my line of work, being prepared is second nature. And this time, I used those instincts to protect what was mine. After the judge ruled in my favor, I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. One morning, after moving into my new place, I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when I heard the knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there she was, my ex-wife. She looked different. Her eyes were puffy, her face drawn. Before I could even greet her, she launched into it. "You're cold, you know that?" Heartless. Her voice cracked slightly, but she held her ground. "I can't believe how calculated you were through all of this. The divorce papers, the evidence, The way you just waited. How could you? I stood there, leaning against the doorframe, letting her words hit me like pebbles thrown at a wall. I'd spent years in combat zones, trained to keep my composure under pressure. This wasn't any different. She didn't understand how I could move through the mess of our marriage and its unraveling without shouting, crying, or slamming doors. But what was the point? Emotion didn't fix betrayal. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, she shouted, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I stayed quiet. What was there to say? She'd already had her chance, and she'd wasted it with excuses and half-truths. I had allowed her to come clean on her own terms, and when she didn't, I made my move. Calculated? Maybe. Cold? Possibly. But heartless? No. I don't even recognize you anymore, she said, her voice softer now. You were so meticulous. The evidence you had, how did you even do all of that? Who are you? She was crying by then. The tears streamed down her cheeks, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of the man I used to be, the man who would have wiped those tears away. But that man was gone. He'd left the moment I realized she had chosen someone else over the life we built together. When she finished, there was silence. I didn't respond. I just looked at her, calm and steady, like I'd been trained to do. My silence seemed to frustrate her more than anything I could have said. You just don't care, do you? She whispered, her voice trembling. I did care once. I cared enough to build a life with her. But now, caring was a luxury I couldn't afford. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, muttered something I didn't catch, and turned to leave. I watched her walk away. As the door closed behind her, I let out a slow breath. It was a bittersweet moment. Part of me felt relief. It was truly over. But another part of me that remembered the good times before the lies felt a twinge of sadness. It was the last time I saw her, and even now I know she left with more questions than answers. Maybe that's what hurt her the most. But for me, it was the closure I needed. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. I threw myself into my work. If I wasn't out in the field, I was in the office, poring over every case file, every lead. And you know what? It helped, because focusing on the mission reminded me of my purpose. It gave me clarity. The pain? It didn't go away, not entirely, but it got quieter. I stopped wondering what she was thinking, or why she did what she did. I stopped caring about the answers I'd never get. And here's what I learned from all of it. Relationships, good ones, are built on honesty and communication. Not just from one side, but from both. If she had told me she was unhappy, or that she felt neglected, maybe things could have been different. Maybe I would have tried harder to bridge the gap between my work and my marriage. Or maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. Who knows? But sneaking around, lying, cheating, that was never the answer. So now I'm asking you, what do you think about how I handled it? Was I too cold? Too calculated? Some of you might think I should have sat her down and talked it out. And maybe you're right. Or maybe for someone like me, there was no way back after that betrayal. What would you have done in my shoes? And to the women watching this, communication matters. If there's something wrong in your relationship, say it. Don't bottle it up. Don't let it fester. Because once you cross a line like that, once you betray someone who's put their trust in you, there's no going back. And the fallout? It's messy for everyone involved. Let me know in the comments. What would you have done? Do you think I went too far with how I handled it? Or was it the only way? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.